Welcome into the Baseball Insiders as Major League Baseball's executives have invented an August waiver trade deadline after eliminating it. Except this time, you don't get players in exchange for players. You just get financial relief and an exhale in exchange for talented players who are going to impact the playoff race. With me, as always, is Fansided's MLB insider Robert Murray, and it's a gift, Robert, to get to do this show on a Thursday with a big old weird bee's nest of baseball news out of nowhere at the end of August.
Absolutely nuts. Did not see the extent of this happening. I thought maybe last week we'd end up having some sort of waiver claim kind of thing. We'll get into that in a little bit because I got some more insight on the Angels there. But man, oh man, what a absolutely crazy day. Adam Winder, how you doing, my friend?
Ooh, doing great. Plenty to talk about, obviously. A lot of questions I had prepped, questions we're going to have to improvise because now we know how things went down, and one team definitely comes out on top in this scenario. Big things happening in Cleveland, and I'm not talking about September 22nd against the Orioles, which is Kid Cudi bobblehead night. But before we get into all that, just want to shout out our sponsors real quick. Today's show is brought to you by Caesars. Caesars Sportsbook kicking off the NFL season for you baseball insiders fans with a new bet, $50, get $250 in bonus bets, limited time offer. If you are a new user, you can sign up with our code FSBETS40GET. That's FSBETS40GET. And redeem $250 in bonus bets after placing your first wager of $50 on any NFL game. Even if your first bet loses, you will receive one $50 bonus bet credit each week over the next 5 weeks. Make sure to enter our code FSBETS40GET while signing up to have a bet on Caesars every week for the start of the season. This offer is only available to new customers who are 21 plus, physically present, legal gambling states. Please remember to always gamble responsibly. Check the episode description for the full terms of the offer. That code again, FSBETS40GET. And not to make fun of our partners, but that code is crazy. If you want to see the code written out, maybe join the Discord where Robert and I will be talking potential future NFL bets. You might even get a chance to learn about some waiver claims before anybody else. We were having some great discussion the last couple of days about potential claiming teams, how the standings were going to shake out, what the reverse order was going to look like. That's the only place to get access to asking us questions before the show, during the show. If you want, you can join the comment section or join the Discord. And after, it's a place with inside access, both Robert and myself. And Robert, I had a question planned because I was like, man, we don't know where these players are going to land. A couple of wild card contenders are probably going to get better. Maybe somebody tries to get somebody in their system ahead of time, give them a little free agency audition. I had a question in there about like, hey, man, any spite claims? Did any team claim players just out of spite? Kind of seems like that's all that happened. We got mostly spite claims from the Cleveland Guardians, who end up with 3 of these very talented players who could have easily been twins.
I will tell you that I did not have the Guardians getting Lucas Giolito, Ronaldo Lopez. Well, they also got Matt Moore, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's absolutely crazy. And I mean, you look at the Guardians, they have the same record as the Angels. They are basically in a similar position as them. They're on the outside looking into the postseason hunt here. And they add 3 guys who are on expiring contracts. And it was really strange. But I will say this. You look at the Guardians' rotation right now. They have 3 young studs who are as good as any in baseball. You add Lucas Giolito. You add 2 relievers. Maybe do you have a shot at catching the Twins? They're 5 games back. A little strange that this is totally strange in the fact that the Guardians, they sold Aaron Savali at the deadline, and then now add 3 players at the waiver deadline or waiver claims here. And
whatever
then the
this
Angels,
is.
Yeah, it's really tough. It's totally bizarre, but we'll get into that in a little bit. But the Angels, who just spent a ton of money, gave up a lot of their top prospects to go all in less than a month later, end up waving the white flag and selling all these guys for nothing, and they just for salary relief. The Guardians took advantage. The Reds took advantage of it. And I'll give some insight here. Is the Angels did this last week. They put Tyler Anderson on waivers, and they put his 3-year, $39 million contract on the waiver wire. No team claimed him. I don't know when exactly they did this, but they also put Aaron Loop on waivers. No team ended up claiming him. But the Angels clearly wanted salary relief. They got it. Their prospect and their farm system is basically, it's not looking very good right now, besides Logan O'Hoppe, who's at the major league level. A tough day for that organization, to say the least, compared to what they were like a month ago.
Yeah, when you go all in with gutting the top of your farm system for Giolito and Lopez, you'd better be sure of yourself. Heavy dose of skepticism at the trade deadline, looks even worse now. But to pull the plug ahead of free agency and basically say, when they made the trade, I think you and I, or at least a lot of people, I felt this way. You thought, well, obviously they're making a push now, and at the very least, they're going to be able to ride Giolito to the end of the season, see what they have. That feels like an extension candidate. And now that theoretically they could revisit this in the offseason, but placing somebody on waivers is a pretty clear way to sour long-term deal implications.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly it. And you also got to wonder, like, what kind of impact is this going to have on Shohei Ohtani? Because he clearly wants to win, and he's made it abundantly clear he wants to compete in the postseason, which is the highest level in Major League Baseball. And his team just waved the white flag unlike any team has done in recent Major League history. And does this impact those negotiations in the offseason? Does this make it more unlikely that he returns there? I will say, going into the season, I was under the impression that if the Angels did not make the postseason, that an Ohtani return would be less likely. I'd put it in the unlikely category. But with Artie Moreno, you never know. You can offer him a dollar amount that just exceeds everyone by a lot, but I'm thinking Ohtani's playing elsewhere next year.
You truly never know. After all, Artie Moreno did this, all of this, whatever this is. And I think a lot of scorn was levied on him when people first saw the swarm of Angels hit the wire at the same time. Then it began to trickle out that, well, actually a few other veterans are on the wire. Harrison Bader, the Yankees, Mike Clevinger, Carlos Carrasco. It wasn't just Artie Moreno. He was just the most blatant and kind of the face of this whole thing. So a couple of days ago, it kind of felt like, man, is there going to be discipline for this? Like, the way the deadline's been eliminated in August, you wonder, like, was this what MLB intended? Do they want to see an owner just cutting bait a month after the trade deadline? A lot of people join him, and I feel like that's maybe less likely now than it was when it was a knee-jerk reaction. But do you think Artie Moreno is going to is the league going to come down on him for this, or was the league expecting this?
I don't think the league could have expected this. I don't think anybody could have expected this. But that being said, I don't anticipate Moreno being disciplined for this because I don't like it's the Angels waving the white flag, and everybody's going to be talking about like the competitive, like they're not trying to compete. As I said, they're waving the white flag, but this helps out other contending teams. It rids the Angels of about $5.7 million. I believe that's the amount, which is going to help them get under the luxury tax, which also could end up enhancing what they're going to be able to offer Ohtani in the offseason. Like there's a multitude of different factors here, but I don't anticipate Moreno facing discipline for this.
I think a lot of people are talking about, we're talking about the Angels because they just shucked off several men on the roster who we thought were going to help lead them to a wild card push are now in Cincinnati and Cleveland. I want to look at Cleveland for a second because I think there are two interesting things going on here. One is people are saying, I think there was a Bob Nightingale tweet, people are saying Cleveland surrendered at the deadline. Did they? I kind of liken this to what the Mariners did, where they trade Paul Sewald because they want to and they think they can keep that bullpen strong, but they give themselves flexibility moving forward. Cleveland gives up Amed Rosario in just a total dump for Noah Syndergaard, who's no longer on that roster. But getting rid of Rosario was something Cleveland was looking to do. A lot of Cleveland fans will tell you they didn't want him playing every day for this team. Aaron Savali, of course, that's a tough horse to lose in the middle of a race, but they've got plenty of young pitching. They're going to trade him in the offseason anyway, probably, right? It's almost like rearranging chairs, not necessarily giving up. And all of a sudden, I'm telling you, like, my choke senses are always my choke sensors are always up. I'm looking at deficits. I'm looking at schedules. I've done a pretty good job of predicting chokes in the past. I know this sounds like revisionist history. I had the 2011 Red Sox in trouble in like early September because they went from like 10 up to 7 up. I was looking at the schedule and I was like, I mean, it's not over, and it wasn't over. This one, a lot of people are saying, well, the Guardians had to sweep the Twins to make this really something. This past series, they only took 2 out of 3, but they won the road series. The two sides play 3 games in Cleveland, Monday to Wednesday, the 4th through the 6th, and that 5-game lead. I mean, Minnesota September last year was a September to forget. I'm not sure I trust the Minnesota Twins to hold this 5-game lead over a Guardians team that just got a big pile of reinforcements.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think you're exactly right about that too. Is like no lead is safe in baseball, especially like because I mean the Twins, I think they're better than they were last year, but still 5 games, especially this late in the season, can end up being nothing. And you look at the Guardians' roster now; they have the pitching that can vault them. It can end up being what gets them into the postseason and gets them above the Twins. And I'll tell you, like there is a reason why all those pitchers were so highly coveted by everyone in baseball. I'll tell you, like you talk to a bunch of different teams, they were either considering or they did end up placing a waiver claim in on Lopez and Matt Moore. And those being able to get those guys for the last part of the season, giving up no prospects, so that does not impact their long-term future at all. It sets them up really, really, really well. And as Justin says here, they have a tough schedule in September. They got Tampa Bay, they got at San Francisco, they got Texas, at Baltimore, and Cincinnati. Not easy, but they have a roster that's really talented, and especially a pitching staff. And I also want to tell you this, Adam. There's 2 nuggets that I have here. One person on the waiver wire that was not reported was Daniel Norris with the Guardians. I did not see that out anywhere. He did not get claimed, obviously. But also that Aaron Savali trade, the prospect that they got in return for him at the deadline. I had numerous different executives with rival teams tell me that the Rays are going to end up regretting that trade in the future because the prospect they gave up was really, really good. And there was a lot of logic behind that move for Cleveland. They weren't looking to move Savali, but the offer was too good. And that's why these teams listen on all these guys. You never know what someone's going to offer you.
I love it. I love Manzardo, and getting Manzardo is a key reason, like Justin said, that they sold Josh Bell. Yep. They also, I mean, Josh Bell ignited in Miami, so give Josh Bell credit. But at the time, that was another like, all right, we got a struggling, aging player. We got a multi-year contract on our hands. We're the Cleveland Guardians. Maybe we look to move off this, and we could probably retool around it. And they've managed to stay afloat, if not over 500 and in the lead. But they're in the mix.
No, for sure. And I'll tell you, like, speaking of Josh Bell, actually, it's weird because in previous seasons, he's always been significantly better in the first half than he was in the second half. He would always he would always taper off in the second half. This season's been like the exact opposite for him. I don't think anyone could have necessarily seen this coming. I don't blame Cleveland for moving on because I thought that was a smart move. I still thought the offseason trade or the offseason signing him was one of the worst deals of the winter. I give him credit for also admitting the mistake because they got Gene Segura in that trade and then they immediately dumped him. So that was a pure salary dump by that one.
Yeah, and Bell's got that player option for next year. So if he was this bad down the stretch in Cleveland, pretty confident he's picking up that old option. So they had to get off that somehow.
No, exactly. And that gave him flexibility, and it got him Matt Moore, got him Ronaldo Lopez and Lucas Giolito. By the way, here's another one for you. So Lucas Giolito and Ronaldo Lopez have been with the same teams, the White Sox, with the Nationals, now the Guardians, and also the Angels. They have been traded with each other every single time they've been moved. What are the odds of that? Probably 1 in a trillion, but it's been the case for those two.
And what's Adam Eaton been up to since that initial trade? Not that much if Cleveland's looking for a 26th man.
Oh, my goodness. I'll tell you, if they end up signing Adam Eaton, you are going to be officially declared king of, the baseball insiders. Well, you already are, but we'll just get you like a plaque or something to make it official.
Yeah, we're tied for king right now. I don't think I'm king.
Nah, King Winder. That's going to be your new name in my contacts, so get ready.
Fantastic. I'll change. Yeah, I was gonna say I'll change it in mine so I see it too, but I don't think that's how contacts work. I'm paying attention to baseball too much. I don't know how to put myself in my own phone.
I love it. Hey, you know what? That's you as you should. That's why we're called the baseball insiders, baby, not the contact insiders.
100%. 100%. I don't understand Apple software, and I never will. Well, the New York Yankees checked in on this waiver wire frenzy too. Ultimately, Clevenger or the White Sox not claimed. Carrasco stays with the Mets, but the Reds were the only other team to make noise. The Ohio Cup, Cleveland and Cincinnati, both going after talent. Harrison Bader goes from the Yankees to the Reds, facilitates Jason Dominguez's promotion, which I don't know how we got 16 minutes into this podcast without me saying Jason Dominguez. The 20-year-old Martian is on the Yankees roster and will be playing tomorrow in Houston, which is insane. But in order to make room for him, Bader, who was at one point an extension candidate in the Bronx, then had a year to forget like all the rest of the Yankees, gets hurt a few times like he's been prone to. He has, some various dings and bruises, hits lefty pitching, but has, I believe, a 56 OPS plus against righties and a 72 OPS plus in general. Not what you want in that walk year. And today he sort of said his goodbyes to New York, saying, proud to be a hometown kid, wear the jersey. No one can take that away from me. I think his time in the Bronx is probably over. But now he gets to help a team in a pennant race right in the wild card mix. Cincinnati much closer to contention than Cleveland, and they bolster their outfield twice today.
Yeah, I'll tell you, like when Bader is placed on waivers, that was one where you knew immediately he was going to be claimed, and he was owed a little less than $800,000 for the rest of the year. And like for a guy who can play Gold Glove defense in center field, and also he's a very capable bat, especially against left-handed pitching. Right-handed pitching is where he's really struggled. And I thought there was a couple of people in baseball who thought that the San Francisco Giants were going to be the team that claimed Bader, but they ultimately did not get the opportunity to. He goes to Cincinnati along with Hunter Renfroe, gives them some outfield reinforcements. It gets them a capable defender in center field. And with Renfroe, you end up getting a power bat who's also familiar with the NL Central. He was with the Brewers, last year, I want to say. And, I mean, he's capable when he's hot. I mean, we got to see it right before he got claimed. Like he was going off, and like he can be somebody who carries you for a week or two stretch. Like I know he's been this is his how many different teams now? Like 5 or 6 in the last 5 or so years.
It's nuts. I don't get it. Yeah,
he's been with a lot of different teams, and it's very strange. Good player. And yeah, the Reds, they got better today, and that's a really young team that they have there, and they just added 2 veterans, and I think that can only be a good thing for that team.
Yeah, for some reason, this is the first time that Renfroe has changed teams in the middle of the season, so I guess good for him, but this is his 6th team since 2019, and he's been a productive player and a postseason performer at all of these spots. San Diego to Tampa to Boston to Milwaukee to the Angels, now to Cincinnati. 2 NL Central reunions on that Cincinnati team. Renfroe just had experience there last season. Bader was a Cardinal his whole career up until the 13 games he played in the Bronx last year, 5 playoff homers, and then this partial season. The Cincinnati Reds are a team that needed a little kick, and they got a little kick.
That they did. And I mean, that can only be a good thing, because I'll tell you that lineup or that roster overall is extremely, extremely talented, but they just did not have a lot of guys with veteran experience. And as I said, I think this is only going to be a good thing. And I know Justin's been asking about San Diego here. Like that is a team that I thought could end up making a move, but they realize where they're at right now. And they are not going to make the postseason. Like even Bob Melvin, their manager, said there's no point looking at the standings, which that's a pretty damning comment coming from the manager. So they just were not in position to do that. Granted, I mean, I thought there was a scenario in which like a team like that could end up claiming one of those guys to try to get the first chance at signing them before the offseason gets here. But as I said, San Diego just was not in the position to do that.
Yeah, even I'm checking the standings. So when a major league manager's not doing it, then, something's really gone wrong. we'll talk more pressing needs, but Jason Dominguez, man, what? Like, wait, but like, huh? He's 20 years old. I think a lot of people are already calling him a bust because he's not Bo Jackson or Mickey Mantle at 17. Yankees starting right fielder opening day last year, like people expected, but he's on a AAA tear. I went the whole gamut of emotions on this call up where about a couple days ago when it got floated, I was just kind of like, why would you do that? Like, why would you bring him into a toxic clubhouse? He's finally having success at AAA. Just let him finish the year there. Give him a chance to compete for the job next year. But once it actually happened, you immediately do flip the switch into like, all right, I just watched him struggle April, May, June at AA. But then guess what? He did figure it out. He did not let his really low numbers get him down. And he had a great July. He had a torrid August. Now he comes up to the major leagues riding momentum. I think I changed my tune a little bit. I obviously had to because it happened. So now I have to defend it. But it did feel like I feel at this point in time, let's say he has a bad September. He's shown enough to me that I think he could shake that off next spring and again compete for the job. This lets him get his feet wet a little bit, if nothing else. And obviously, I'm watching tomorrow, right?
Oh,
now I have a reason.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, I mean, for the Yankees, I mean, obviously it gives their fans a reason to watch it or gives them a reason to go to the games. But also it gives them a look at Dominguez. It gives them a look at all the other prospects that they've called up in recent days. And it's kind of like an early spring training for them or late spring training. I don't know how you want to necessarily phrase
that.
A
little bit of both. Yeah.
Yeah. A little bit of both. And it's a low pressure environment because the Yankees have nothing to play for. And it gives those young hitters a look at major league pitching also in September here, where a lot of these teams are going to be going all out. I almost use a different phrase. That would have been, but yeah, I see no issue with it whatsoever. And as you said, like everything that I've heard about Dominguez, if he does struggle, he's got like the mental makeup to like put it past him and just show up next year with a clean slate. So I think that can only be a good thing for the Yankees.
Yep. Jason Dominguez, Austin Wells, Everson Pereira, Anthony Volpe, Oswald Peraza. Why don't you go play a little spoiler, guys? You're obviously well under 500. Volpe hit a 3-run game-tying home run today with 2 outs in the ninth. For those of you not watching the Yankees, I think that's probably most of you, but he's 20-20 now, 20 bombs, 20 stolen bases. Something to look forward to moving forward, maybe, for a team that we've kind of kicked their ass for the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, we have kicked their ass. And yeah, I mean, I'll praise the Yankees because it happened a little bit later than I thought it would, but they're calling up the young guys, and it's going to be the month of the kids, and only a good thing. So I tip my cap to Cashman and that front office for doing it.
I do too. I do. And you have me on the record. I also tip my cap. Crazy baseball day. You know it's a crazy baseball day because we're 24 minutes into the show. We have not mentioned a GM being hired today. Chris Getz has been elevated by the Chicago White Sox. The internal, the search committee did not have to look far to find their replacement for departing Kenny Williams and Rick Hahn. You and I talked on a recent show about a couple big names they might be pursuing. Maybe they're looking, if they did want experience, they would look here. But this kind of felt like a fait accompli for quite a while. And now Chicago will hand the keys over to someone who's been there for a long time. And that's a reason for, I think, a lot of the dissatisfied fans in Chicago to be kind of pessimistic because Rick Hahn and Kenny Williams were fired for building the thing that Chris Getz also helped build.
Yeah, and I'm going to pull up a text here so I have it ready because somebody pointed this out to me earlier today after the hire was made official. But they obviously fired Kenny Williams Jr. or they fired Kenny Williams Sr. Along with Rick Hahn. And Kenny Williams Jr. also works in that front office as their assistant director of player development. And he worked directly under Chris Getz. So you got to imagine he's going to end up continuing to stay there in Chicago and working there. Maybe, who knows, maybe even gets promoted. But it's a really, this was puzzling, like extremely puzzling. And there's a lot that I can say here. And I mean, I will say it. Usually I try to not go rip somebody or rip a team, but the White Sox, they had no competition looking for a general manager. They had 5 weeks, they had 6 weeks maybe to find a replacement for Rick Hahn. They could have talked to numerous different executives around baseball, picked up different ideas that those organizations do to make themselves better, to implement in their own organization. And they ended up staying in-house, did not seemingly cast a wide net at all externally. Like they fired Rick Hahn a week and a half ago, and they already named his replacement, which was basically apparent from the moment that they fired Rick Hahn. Like, I think they totally botched it. And that is not like, that's a Jerry Reinsdorf and Chicago White Sox thing. This is not a Chris Getz issue. Maybe he's a really good executive. Maybe he turns out to be a great GM who gets the White Sox on the right track. But they did not need to rush this. They had no competition. There's a lot of different executives in baseball who they could have talked to, and maybe they would end up being blown away at hiring that guy. But they rushed it. And I think White Sox fans have every reason to be pissed because that Jerry Reinsdorf botched it. This is it's not the Tony La Russa hire by any means, but they had no reason to rush it. And I think that just a huge mistake.
Yeah. Is there any reason that we need a new GM on August 31st other than to make these waiver claims? If the White Sox wanted to get Giolito and Ronaldo Lopez back, like did we have to do this?
That would have been hilarious if they ended up doing that. Yeah, trade those guys for all those top prospects, and a couple weeks later they get them back. But man, I'll tell you, I don't get it. And I know there's a lot of different people in baseball who were totally just baffled by this too, because I talked to different GMs. I talked to other people in baseball who thought the White Sox would go for a guy who had previous GM experience. Lo and behold, they didn't. But maybe there was a report that they could hire Dayton Moore if they hired Getz, and obviously they got Getz. So maybe Dayton Moore follows closely behind.
2 Brewers points to close out the show, getting in under the wire. First of all, we connected the Brewers to Pete Alonso a little bit, but I think more pertinent before we go into the latest on Mets, Brewers, Alonso, does he stay? We're getting down to the wire today. All the waiver wire guys are getting signed. Josh Donaldson, released by the Yankees a couple days ago officially. He also, if he hooks on with somebody today, can get onto a playoff roster. Rumor had it the Brewers were at least considering the maneuver. We had a question earlier asking from Steven Metzdorf if the Brewers were getting Donaldson because they've gotten a little underwhelming play from their third baseman lately. As someone who's watched Donaldson for 2 years, I can assure you, if you need more underwhelming play at third base, he might be the guy to target. But couple more hours to go here. I guess if the Brewers did want to come to an agreement with Josh Donaldson, they could still place him on the playoff roster. Horrendous acquisition by the Yankees. Nothing going to change that. One of Brian Cashman's absolute worst. Is there potential he ends up back in baseball, though, for September and for the stretch run?
I wouldn't rule it out. Like the Brewers fit. So I don't know if I reported this in 2021. I don't know if anyone really reported it. But in 2021, the Brewers, they had interest in Josh Donaldson. I had it on pretty good authority that they wanted Donaldson, or that they had interest in Donaldson. Obviously, they didn't get it done, but there's past interest, and I wouldn't necessarily rule it out. I think the Brewers could go in a little bit of a better direction than Donaldson because he obviously does not have the greatest clubhouse reputation, and I know the clubhouse is something that Craig Counsell and that Brewers team really values. So they're going to have to ask themselves some pretty difficult questions internally, whether or not they should or do pursue Donaldson. I don't know necessarily if it gets done, but I do know what Ken Rosenthal, Will Salmon, or The Athletic reported is right. The Brewers are in fact considering it.
Well, there you go. I mean, I was expecting better from Josh Donaldson. I did not receive it. Yeah, that one. Jeff Passan went on the record earlier this week too. Basically, it was nice to hear somebody not just praise Brian Cashman, but rather go. He delivered the lines that like, hey, you're really going to blame him for Giancarlo Stanton. You're really going to blame him for acquiring big names, opening a championship window. But then he did say, you know what? The Donaldson trade, pretty indefensible. And his last 15 years of draft picks, pretty indefensible, which was nice to hear. I think you and I are agreed that the Donaldson trade, that was indefensible from the start. Taking on money, letting it weigh you down. If you don't let it weigh you down, that's one thing. But then the Yankees did. The Yankees said, this is our big money move. A 36 and 37-year-old third baseman who costs $26 million a year. And that's it. That's all we're doing. And That's how you close a window.
Yeah, I'll never forget when that trade was made. I remember it was later at night, and I was laying in bed, and all of a sudden I'm scrolling through my phone, and I get the tweet notification from Passan that the Yankees had acquired Josh Donaldson, and my instant reaction was, did Passan just get hacked? And then I realized, no, he did not get hacked, and then my initial thought was, what are the Yankees thinking? Because that seemed like a deal, even in the moment, that had no shot of working out. And it did not work out. It was one of the worst deals that Brian Cashman has made as general manager. Did not work out. And they moved on with a month and a week in that range left in the season. That deal was doomed from the moment it happened. And obviously here we are now.
It's a hilarious one too, because he was on the 60-day IL, kind of just biding his time. Looked like he was healthy in I don't know, mid-August. He was taking BP with the team, but he was on the 60-day. You assume they're just going to wind down the clock. All of a sudden gets released so he can join another team. Best of luck in the playoffs, maybe, Josh Donaldson. I'm sure we will talk Pete Alonso plenty this offseason, but just one last time. Everything coming out this week was a bunch of people from the Mets camp defending Alonso against accusations he was toxic in the clubhouse. They seem to love him. An executive told Mark Feinsand the Mets' current offer wasn't insulting, not enough to dissuade him from testing free agency, but not so low that it would chase him away. Another executive told Feinsand there was no indication the Mets didn't plan to compete in 2024. All of this sounds to me like, let's give it one more year together, and then we'll revisit we'll let you reach free agency, and then we'll talk about it again, instead of cashing him in this winter. That's where it feels to me like the winds are blowing right now.
Oh, I wouldn't necessarily rule that scenario out. I think it does make sense, especially considering that the Mets did the exact same thing with Brandon Nimmo, and they let him test free agency, and they ultimately ended up re-signing him to an 8-year deal. So I mean, they have history of doing that. I still think in the offseason they're going to try to extend him. I think that is a player that the organization absolutely needs to build around. And I think it says a lot about Alonso as a player, but also as a person, that so many people in the organization were as vocal as they were in defending him. Because usually if a player gets ripped publicly and nobody says something, that says a lot right there. But everybody was pretty adamant that Alonso is not a clubhouse cancer or anything along those lines. Everything I've heard about Alonso, good dude and good clubhouse guy. And everybody backing it up just seems to confirm it. That report, as soon as it came out, that smelled, it just reeked of BS. That just had no merit whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't even know if it was a report as much as it was just Sal Licata screaming. But either way, it made it to Pete Alonso directly. So congratulations, you got Pete Alonso mad at you. You poked the polar bear, and you get what you asked for.
Yeah, you never want to poke the polar bear. Yeah, that was well played by you. I like that one. Yeah.
There you go. What a place to end it. We might as well. We had a crazier day than expected for sure. Although could have been more nuts. Could have been 5 players on 5 teams. Instead, it's Cleveland for the block, playing Connect 4 with the Minnesota Twins, and we will see if my choke sensors were engaged accurately or erroneously moving forward. They definitely have a shot. Not a great one. They got a shot. Again, that Caesar Sportsbook promo is FSBets40GET. It's at the bottom of the screen for new users only on the platform with NFL season approaching. If you're going to sign up for an account, please use our code. It helps the podcast, helps Robert and I, helps us continue to bring you the content that you need, that we hope to continue bringing you for a very long time. And if you aren't a member yet of the YouTube channel, if you aren't in the Discord, please join us there as well. Conversation was rollicking this morning as these claims were coming down, and we were trying to process them en masse, as well as the Chris Getz hiring, which there are some White Sox fans in there. I feel quite bad for them, but if you'd like to either laugh at White Sox fans or join them in commiserating, please join us. Justin, thanks for clocking in on your vacation, man. Thanks to everybody in the chat for joining us. You guys are the best. You're the lifeblood of the podcast. Robert Murray and I are just the co-hosts, although Robert and I obviously could not host the show without you, and I appreciate you joining me again today on a wild one.
It was certainly wild, but hey, I also could not do the show without you, my friend. I appreciate you. Everybody in the comments, appreciate you. Justin, appreciate you tuning in from St. Martin. have a blast, have a beverage for me if you're of age, of course.
Yeah.
See you Monday or no, actually Tuesday. We got Labor Day coming up.
Yeah, see everybody on Tuesday. We got a holiday, but we will be right back after the holiday. I'll be in a new apartment. I will be 98% less stressed, I think. Oh, I'm sure there'll be something else raising my blood pressure. We'll just have to wait and see what that is. Couple of big interviews coming up for you guys, too. Secret content. Watch this space. Got a lot of great live streams coming up, as always, every Monday, Thursday, 3:30 Eastern on all your favorite podcast platforms. But we've also got some other good pre-recorded content. It's got me deleting some of my old tweets, so I'll leave it at that. That's your hint.
I'm sure. I'm sure as a fan of that team of yours, that you had plenty of tweets. So that's a good move. But we have some very good guests coming up. So stay tuned for that. I'm very excited for it. Very excited.
Yeah. Stay tuned. Get your notifications on. We'll see you back here on Tuesday afternoon live. A lot of great content coming your way. For Robert Murray, I'm Adam Weinrib. Claim me on waivers, baby.
There you go. Thank you, everybody.